Welcome to Hunter Beyond Time and Space Chapter 31. Night falls, and skipping class seems to have become Qinchen's habit. In theory, after skipping class so many times, his parents should have been informed. But the key is that his homeroom teacher, Dewey Hong, has been absent himself, never showing up since the time travel incident. The other teachers also don't pay attention to Qinchen. So, whenever he can skip class, he does so without hesitation. After work, the narrow Xingshu Road has become lively, with vendors selling roasted sweet potatoes, watermelons, and cold dishes on both sides of the road. When he was a child, if his mother Zhang Wanfang went back to her family, his father would take him out to eat a bowl of rice noodles for 1.5 cents. At that time, Qinchen felt that his father was too perfunctory with him, but looking back now, perhaps that was the best time of his childhood. At that time, his father hadn't started gambling, his parents hadn't divorced, and his grandparents hadn't despised him. Back then, a bowl of rice noodles for 1.5 cents now costs 15 yuan, and it seems that everything can't go back to the way it was. After he entered the number 4 courtyard, he suddenly found two men squatting on the roadside smoking. As the sky gradually darkened, Qinchen couldn't see their faces clearly, only the red sparks of their cigarettes flickering. At first, Qinchen thought they were members of a mysterious organization watching and following him, because their behavior was abnormal, and they kept looking around. But later he found out that they didn't react at all when he walked by. When Qinchen walked into the corridor, he smelled the fragrance coming from upstairs, and Li Tongyun was already waiting at his door. "Brother, Mom is almost done cooking, she asked me to wait for you here." "What if I'm in evening self-study? You don't have to wait for me," Qinchen rubbed Li Tongyun's little head. "You haven't been in evening self-study these days," Li Tongyun said, pulling his sleeve and walking upstairs. As soon as he opened the door, Qinchen saw that all the furniture that was smashed before was gone, and the room no longer looked as desolate as before, as if many things had been replaced with new ones. Jiang Shui was busy in the kitchen wearing an apron. When she heard the door open, she said without turning her head, "Has Qinchen arrived?" "Sit down quickly, we're just missing a soup." Qinchen looked at the table: sweet and sour spare ribs, stir-fried beef, sour beans with minced meat, and hot and sour shredded potatoes, all looked appetizing. Compared to the bland food in the number 18 prison, this was a real improvement in diet. "Aunt Jiang Shui, what are we celebrating?" Qinchen asked. "I told you before that I opened a prosthetics clinic in the other world," Jiang Shui said, with a smile on her face. I heard you mention it." Qinchen got up to help her put the soup pot on the table. Jiang Shui turned around and went back to the kitchen to get rice and chopsticks. "I was very worried about the clinic before, because when I crossed over, I didn't inherit my memory. So when people came to me to modify their prosthetics, I didn't know how to do it." Qinchen listened silently. But Jiang Shui continued, "Those who came to modify their prosthetics, they all looked fierce, and the public security in the number 18 city is particularly poor at night. It's not safe to walk on the street after 8 o'clock. So I've been very worried." That's why Jiang Shui entrusted Li Tongyun to Qinchen temporarily, because she didn't know if she could come back after crossing over. "But now it's all right," Jiang Shui said, beaming with joy. "I don't know what happened, but the Li Consortium suddenly found my small clinic and said they wanted to invest in it." "Li's," Qinchen muttered to himself. "I told you before, the Consortium in the other world is like a god. As long as the Consortium invests in an industry, all the criminals will avoid it," Jiang Shui said happily while sitting at the dining table. "They not only gave me money, but also replaced my holographic neon sign with the Li logo, so I'm much safer in the other world now." Qinchen laughed. "With the help of Li's Consortium, we should celebrate. Now you don't have to trouble yourself, and Li Tongyun's grandparents don't have to leave their hometown." Jiang Shui was satisfied with the current situation. She even looked at Qin Chen with a smile and said, "You used to envy time travelers so much. If you really travel here one day, come and find me in the number 18 city. I may not be able to do much else, but I can protect you." Qin Chen sighed. He really was in the number 18 city, but unfortunately, his situation was beyond the scope of ordinary time travelers. The struggle between the Qin Consortium and the Shadow Consortium, and the legacy of the Night Organization, had already exceeded the level of ordinary time travelers' understanding. "By the way, Jiang Shui, did those men in black come to you again?" Qin Chen asked. "They didn't come to me, I went to them," Jiang Shui said. "After I entrusted Li Tongyan to you, I wanted to contact them to see if I could get their help in the other world." Jiang Shui continued, "But they said the organization had just been established and it's difficult to play a role in the other world, so they couldn't help." After dinner, Jiang Shui went to wash dishes, leaving Qin Chen and Li Tongyan sitting at the table. At this moment, Qin Chen suddenly asked, "You're also a time traveler, aren't you?" Li Tongyan blinked and asked, "What are you talking about, brother Qin Chen? Last time, you asked specifically for your mother's clinic name." As a result, Li's consortium invested in her clinic this time and protected it so intimately, Qin Chen said. "You can deny it, but I can also tell your mother about these clues." Li Tongyan instantly became scared. "Please don't tell my mother." Qin Chen breathed a sigh of relief. He guessed right. Before returning yesterday, he reviewed all his recent memories and found something strange. Li Tongyan's first reaction after learning that her mother had opened a clinic was not curiosity about the other world, but to ask about the clinic's name. This was obviously a deliberate question. So, he used one of his remaining transactions to ask Uncle Li for the list of Li's consortium members. Li Tongyan's name was on it. Shuttling between two worlds, his name and body were both his own, this couldn't be wrong. Qin Chen asked in a low voice, "Why don't you tell your mother? There aren't many people in the other world who dare to manage me, but if my mother knows, she will definitely want to manage me on both sides," Li Tongyan said timidly. "Please don't tell my mother, I can give you money. I have a lot of pocket money in the other world." Qin Chen said without hesitation, "I'm not a time traveler, why would I need money from the other world?" Li Tongyan was puzzled when he heard him speak so decisively. "Aren't you a time traveler?" "Of course not," Qin Chen denied. How much pocket money do you have in the other world? Are you trying to cheat a child's money?" Li Tongyan stared at him. "Qin Chen.